I want to welcome you back to this study of the book of Colossians. We are trying to wind down this teaching of the book of Colossians. What a wonderful, wonderful book it is. I hope that you've enjoyed in listening to us as we've gone verse by verse through Colossians. In our last video, we began talking about Epaphras. Epaphras was a bondservant of Jesus Christ. Epaphras was from Colossia, and Epaphras was a Gentile. He was not a Jewish person, but he was a Gentile. Epaphras is with the Apostle Paul in Rome. And the Apostle Paul says something. He says, first of all, Epaphras greets you, but then he says that he is laboring earnestly for you. Now, how was Epaphras, who's in Rome, how is he laboring for the church at Colossia? And there's miles and miles of difference in between the two. Well, the Apostle Paul tells us he's earnestly laboring for you in his prayers. Do you know that your prayers have no limitation? I pray for people around the world. I'm praying for my friends in the Philippines, and I'm praying for my friends in Thailand and for India, and I'm constantly praying around the world, earnestly laboring in prayer. And that's what the Apostle Paul is talking about. He's saying this Epaphras, what's he doing? He is laboring. He's not just sitting back going, Lord bless, Lord bless, Lord bless. No, he's laboring in prayer for the Colossians. And then the Apostle Paul goes on and he says, that you may stand perfect, fully assured in the will of God. What's he praying for? What's he earnestly laboring in prayer for? That you would stand perfect. That you would stand perfect. In other words, that all that Christ has done for you, you would be walking in that. You would be living in that. That you would stand perfect. And then he prays that you would be fully assured in all the will of God. That you would know the will of God. Here's Epaphras, and he's praying, and he's there in Rome, and he's praying, and he's interceding. And he's saying, Lord, let them be perfect. But Lord, let them be fully assured in your will. What a wonderful and powerful ministry Epaphras has. Now, he's not preaching the gospel, but he's praying. And he's changing lives through his prayers. Now, let's go on into verse number 13. For I testify for him that he has deep concern for you and for those who are in Laodicea and Hierapolis. Epaphras has deep concern. He's deeply moved. He's deeply moved for the believers who are in Colossia. Now, he's from Colossia. But he's also deeply moved for the believers in Laodicea and Hierapolis. Those three cities are very closely located to each other, and those three cities had high influence on each other. And here's Epaphras, and he's deeply concerned. He's moved with concern. He's moved with love towards these people in these churches. That's the kind of person that you need to have praying for you. That's the kind of person that you need to be. That you're not just moved for your own little locale and for your own little family, but that you are deeply moved for other people in other parts of the world. Maybe it's Poland, maybe it's the Soviet, or not the Soviet Union, maybe it's Russia, maybe it's Israel. I mean, that you're moved with concern for people in other parts of the world. Now, verse number 14. Luke, the beloved physician, sends you his greetings. Luke. Who is Luke? Luke is the guy who wrote a lot of Paul's messages. Luke was the guy that wrote the book of Acts. Luke was the guy that wrote the Gospel of Luke. I personally believe that Luke wrote the book of Hebrews as Paul dictated it to him from his prison. Paul wrote or dictated from the sewer pit that he was being held in during his second imprisonment. And I believe that he dictated to Luke the book of Hebrews. Luke was a beloved physician. In other words, he wrote like a doctor. He wrote in great detail. If you want to study of the life of Jesus, read the Gospel of Luke. He's got detail in there that the other guys don't have. This is Luke. And what does the Apostle Paul say? Luke, the beloved physician. And by the way, Luke tended to Paul's needs physically while he was in both of his imprisonments. You know, Luke was there at the very end of Paul's life. Luke was 100% committed to the Apostle Paul. And he was committed not only as a doctor, but he was committed to writing and to getting the gospel out and to writing the gospel. What a wonderful man this guy by the name of Luke is. And then we come to this man by the name of Demas. Who was Demas? Demas was a fellow worker with the Apostle Paul. But Demas is kind of a sad story. How many of you realize that you can't keep everyone that's around you? The Bible tells us, in Paul writing his second letter to Timothy, in the 4th chapter, verse number 10, and he says, "For Demas, having loved this present world, has deserted me and gone to Thessalonica." What happened? Demas got concerned. He loved this present world. You know, of all the people that the Apostle Paul associated with and worked with, Demas here deserted the Apostle Paul in Rome. Now, we don't really believe that Demas deserted the faith. I think Demas realized that things were getting hot. 2 Timothy was written, the last letter that Paul ever wrote. It was written from Paul's second imprisonment. I think Demas was thinking, Paul is going to lose his life, and you know what? I am going to go to Thessalonica. So Paul says he deserted me and went to Thessalonica. You know what? We need to understand this, that not every person that we're going to work with is going to succeed. Maybe you've been burdened. Maybe you've been feeling bad about that one person or those two people that you've tried to disciple and you tried to work with. And you know what? It just didn't work out. You know what? The Apostle Paul had people in his life that didn't work out. Continue to be faithful. Continue to serve the Lord. And continue to hang out with faithful brothers in Christ. We're going to pick this up in our next podcast. God bless you until we speak to you again.